Welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. I'm Dr. Cheryl. And today we have a very interesting guest. I guess we'll call this the wealth of, oh my gosh, what can we call this? Welcome, Michael, but I want to give a little intro before.
Sure.
But I want to say welcome to you.
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl.
Yes, but you know, the freedom of expressing yourself is extremely important, especially when it's about sustainable ecology and health and welfare. But Michael is originally from New Jersey.
Yes.
And Michael Killen is his name. And I was telling him earlier, I said, "You're killing me, Michael."
Not yet.
Uh-oh, good. But we anyway. So he worked with Wang Laboratories, SRI International, and Rockwell International. And he has expressed his passion and purpose. He's also he's an educator. Probably most of his career, and correct me if I'm wrong, is around research and development and education.
Yes.
Education, education, education.
Education about executives. And we don't use the word education. We sort of mean allow them to discover new idea and think clearly about business opportunities.
Okay. Well, that's good. But you have focused on climate.
Yes.
On the climate extreme, which has been happening. This is why we have this wonderful painting that is of Stanford and his association with Stanford, etc. So, and you present your beautiful paintings at the Stanford Climate Summit every year.
Yes.
So, you know, tell us from the very beginning, maybe from New Jersey, how you progressed into getting to where you are.
How I progressed. Well, I'm not an orphan, but I didn't have parents. And the fourth grade, I separated from my parents. And I stopped ever initiating a discussion with them because it was always so painful dealing with them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And in the fourth grade, I said, they will not destroy me, and I will find a way to be successful. And when you don't have parents, it gets a little difficult to get into college. So after high school, I did go to a technical school for a year, really high school remedial work. But then I came up with some strange ideas about how to be successful. I will take any job in business, any job, and I will master it. And the day I start to repeat any process, and I feel I've understand the essence of the job, I quit. And I got another job. I stayed there 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. I think my sixth job, I became a clerk at Wang Laboratories, one of the founding computer companies. And with all this experience, you know, these 6 months in all these different places, and each time you take a new job, you know, you got to sort things out quickly. And I just developed techniques for sorting things out quickly. But anyway, I got a job as a clerk and at Wang, and I was assigned to a woman, a lovely woman, and she said, "Michael, you're so green here, and I'm so busy, I can't give you a project, so you'll keep getting paid, but get lost." And she says, "In 2 weeks, we're going to bring in 50 new salespeople and marketing people from around the country. You go into that program, and after 2 weeks in that program, you may be ready to do some work." So I got ready for that class, and you know, I was studying everything, the organization, you know, that was my technique. And then they canceled the program. They put it off. And you know, you cannot hire 50 salespeople and just let them sit them around. You know, you got to train them, you got to get them out, because each one could bring in $500,000 in sales. So all of a sudden, the second time they were going to have a training program, again, they said, well, it may get canceled. So I designed a training program, a 2-week training program, gave it to the national sales manager. He walked down the hall, gave it to Dr. Wang, the chairman. He walked out an hour or two later, and he said, did you do this? And I said, yes. And then he said, what did you do? And I said, because you've got a lot of salespeople who need to be trained. It's a lot of... And then they asked me if I'd become the acting director of education.
Oh, well, there you go.
I was in a company, and then I did 2 training programs, 2-week training programs. I put them on, and then they announced that I'm the formal director of education. But I have followed that practice all my life. Master a job, move on to the next, always look for opportunities, always try to fill them, never ask for anybody. It's like, I know a lot of important people tend to watch your show. But, you know, I'll go to you, and I won't say to you, I want to be on your show so I get the publicity. I'll go to you and say, I'd like to help you. How can I help you?
And you did that.
And that's the way I have moved forward. You know, like with Stanford, they spent $500 million on their new energy system. I didn't ask them to do me any favors. I just, you know, went out to help them. And they said, we would love your help here.
Oh, yeah.
Never ask for anything. Always ask how you can help people.
That's right. That's right. And that's Zig Ziglar's approach. Mm-hmm. That's what he teaches for salespeople. Yeah. You know, is how can I help you be more successful or be successful? Yeah. So how did you get, I mean, how long have you been doing the art?
I think no more than 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And I hate to say this in a way, I'm sort of a prodigy. I don't know if that refers to just young people, but I'm considered an outsider, a primitive. I have absolutely no education in art.
Oh, okay. It's a natural. It's innate. You know, it's a gift. Yeah. Well, I understand. I've studied Chinese brush painting for 4 years, and I've done it for 20-some years, and you know, I love the medium. I love it. It's.
Me too.
You know, have you done Chinese brush painting?
No.
Oh, okay.
I love this.
Well, what you do. So, and you've created this master to be, you know, shown at Stanford.
Oh yeah. This is just a print. The original is 15 feet. Right. You know, a lot longer than this and higher. It's there on a permanent basis. And I only really make message paintings. I get these ideas of things that are good for civilization, good for people, and then I figure out how to symbolically present them on a canvas.
Right.
And then if I'm lucky, I get somebody like you to invite me to come on your show.
Well,
and
I'm an artist too, you know, and I appreciate, and especially around the climate. Yeah. Right now, everybody should be having this conversation so we can change what is happening, because it's a serious problem, and it's going to be even more serious if we don't find a way to get under control, especially for our kids and our grandchildren. I mean, you know, I feel for the millennials as much as there's, you know, some funny stuff that happens with them, but still, you know, a lot of them don't have hope because, you know, they think that it's inevitable that things are just going to go to pot, However, to have Greta doing her thing at 16, and I mean, you know, it's waking up people, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. So it's all tied in to the art and what you're doing, and we just have to stay on. Because I do work hard with, you know, my colleague in Washington, D.C., who is pounding on Congressman's door, because really that's the only way. She taught me that, you know, years ago. The only way that it's going to change is to get it through legislation.
Yes, I have a feeling draconian legislation may eventually emerge around this world where the government may just have to say, all right, folks, no more cars that burn gasoline. You just can't do these things anymore. And they'll put taxes on things, and it's going to get serious, I think.
You mean from the government
From
level?
Well, from first of all,
State,
the climate, from the weather
yeah.
point of view. We're wasting all this time with Trump, who can't spell climate change. And this is the time we should be fighting as hard as we can to find the solutions that can help slow the emissions of greenhouse gases and find other ways to even start cooling the planet.
Right, and well, I'm working with trying to stop the geoengineering. I'll just share, this has been, 3 years ago, I decided, well, you know what, I'm having a hard time believing that the government, well, Monsanto, the evil monsters that they are, I'm having a hard time believing that they would actually be poisoning us on purpose. So I thought, okay, I'm going to test the water. So I did it. I found out how to do it meticulously. I saved the rainwater in a completely clean glass container, put it in another glass container, sent it to the lab, and it came back with aluminum, barium, strontium, sulfur, and silver nitrate. Sulfur, I think it's silver iodide and sulfur nitrate. That I didn't hear about the silver because that starts fires.
Yeah.
And, so, and it's contaminating our water and our soil and our air.
Yeah.
You can't see it. So, it's in to the jet streams, and the big billowing ones are full of the chemicals. And I know that the government's been doing it since the 40s. They do it for communication purposes. Are you aware of this? Have you?
No.
No. Okay. The government does it because there's, all those chemicals are particulates, metal particulates. So they use it to communicate. The electronic communication with the particulates. That was, I think, the original. But then now, bring it up however many years, and now, there are days when I don't see jet streams, the chemtrails. There's days that I don't see them. And when I see a regular contrail, I'm like, oh, God, thanks. Yeah. At least there's somebody out there. They are continuing. I've been down in San Jose where there were probably a dozen crisscrossing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I know this is stark, but you're aware of the overpopulation that we have, and unfortunately, this is one way to slowly, and I'm sorry to say this, but kill off our population. Yeah. These chemicals are lethal, really. Yeah. That it's a slow. Alzheimer's and autism have gone up like 10,000%. So it contributes. It's all contributing. There's so many contributing factors. And with Monsanto involved, and now Bayer bought Monsanto, it's scary.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So, how do we stop this? Well, like my friend says, and I refuse to think that there's not a solution. There's always a solution.
Now, you brought up geoengineering, but you did it in the context of climate change.
Yes.
3 thoughts come to mind. Now, we are in San Rafael, and one of the next towns over is Wood Acres.
Right.
There's actually a company there that has a geoengineering project, and it's involved in reaching up into the atmosphere and sucking down the air and extracting the greenhouse gas emissions from the air, and then using what's been extracted to make metal and some other things. So that's Art Bertus in Woodacre. And in Oakland, there is a company called Deep Isolation, and they've developed a nuclear waste, how to get rid of the nuclear waste, and they are using fracking technology, which, the industry screwed up a lot of things with that technology, but they're using that technology of it being able to drill deep down into the ground where it's very stable, geologically stable, and they pump the nuclear waste way down into these areas that can't have an earthquake and there's no water there. So that's the second one. And then the third one I got involved in is I'm going to do a show next month with the head of an organization called ICE, I-C-E, 9/11. And it's not the federal Trumpy stuff.
Yeah.
This is a nonprofit that recognizes that Greenland is melting every day faster than the day before. The North Pole, the South Pole, big mountains in Africa, the Alps, and there's 2 miles of ice in a lot of places. They're trying to find a way, and they think they might have a way to slow the melt. And I don't know how big the pellets are. They're probably glass or something. They are suggesting that they put out a whole lot of pellets over the ice. And this, when the sun hits it, it'll reflect the heat back up, and it won't melt as much ice as fast. But, the scientists say when that ice really further increases in speed, New York City is going to have to move. It's serious stuff.
It's serious.
The very last
Beyond.
one that I became exposed with in the Portola Valley part of California, there is a man named Ahmad Nukamin who has been working for several years now developing the technology where ships, boats go out into the Pacific and they sprue out chemicals, I think salt-based chemicals that make clouds. And they want to put clouds over the Pacific Ocean on real sunny days to keep the sun from further warming the oceans. So there's a lot of these geoengineering projects.
So that's the positive side of the geoengineering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but they were a little frightening for everyone because this affects weather and...
Well, yeah, and it's also, it's complicated, and so the general person, you really have to do some studying to understand what it is. I mean, I have not heard of, have you ever heard of Dane Wigington?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, he's a former Bechtel engineer, solar engineer, and he got wise to the geoengineering in the spring, and he's been advocating against it, but he hasn't done it on a political level. I mean, they've shut the door in his face, the government has, and so they won't even talk to him. But he got off the grid, and he has like a compound, I think 1,600 acres up in Shasta, and he's off the grid.
Yes.
But he's saying what's happening is with the chemicals that are being sprayed from the jets, that it's drying out the trees, the vegetation, especially with the silver nitrate. So, that's, I guess, one branch of, education on the geoengineering. But I'm glad that there's the positive side, because I think initially it probably was positive, and then it's escalated into all these.
Yeah, I have a feeling that unless you and I and everybody else really does something to slow down climate change now, somewhere down the road, there'll be governments, there'll be people like Bill Gates, very wealthy people, and they'll just say, hey, we have a global disaster. And they'll just take the money, the billionaires, and I think they'll go and implement some of these geoengineering projects because they'll feel the desperateness about...
Bill Gates owns over 550,000 shares of Monsanto.
Does he?
Yes,
okay.
He does. Oh, no, I know that. I've researched it. And, So I have a hard time with him because he, and I guess I have a little bit more energy towards it because I grew up in Bellevue, Washington, Seattle.
Sure.
And, I watched his compound being built. And I just think that, even I think his wife is helping make things look better with all the money that they're spending on trying to help
Education.
et cetera. But on the other hand, he's and I've witnessed him saying, we need to depopulate this planet.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but they're not God, I mean.
I know.
So anyway, that's just one thing, and I think, of course, Monsanto is an evil beast, and I just saw, I read this morning that I heard this was like 2 years ago, that, the Indians, they can be very spiritually motivated, like Gandhi. And when they found out, and I don't know where in India this was, but when they found out that they were using Monsanto, GMO seeds, they ended up, there were like 60,000 of them that commit suicide.
Wow.
And I mean, they're definitely overpopulated there, but
yeah.
still, and so with that, and I just read this morning that they are not accepting any GMO seeds anymore. They're using organic seeds.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, once different, I mean, I know that France and France, I don't think Germany's there yet.
Belgium, Holland.
Yeah, they're ahead of the times on some level on the climate, offender, antidote. Like in the Netherlands, they have, for deer crossings and animal crossings and all, buildings that have, wonderful plants growing on all levels of the buildings, and more oxygen and et cetera. So, oh my, it's a huge issue, that we're dealing with in our lifetime.
Well, you get involved with the chemicals, which is good. I don't really get involved with the Monsantos. I get involved with the PG&Es. I get involved with the energy solutions.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And how and where most of the greenhouse gases are coming from us, of course. And that's my
to focus on. So what do you think that the solutions are?
Well, soon we're going to have to put a tax and dividend on the use of any coal, gas, oil. We're going to have to do that. There is a tremendous amount of discussions these days in this particular area about shutting down all the coal plants, all the oil plants, all the gas plants, and organizations like 350.org, the Greens, Sierra Clubs, they're all recommending they be replaced with wind and wind terminals. Now, it turns out that that's impossible. You cannot shut down a big coal plant and replace it with lithium batteries, solar panels, wind. It's a different kind of energy than generators, than what we need. We need power that's around the clock. And I recently learned that, people say, oh yes, we can get the batteries in there and we can have, well, to replace one coal plant with wind and solar and batteries takes as much lithium battery for one plant that it needs more lithium than the United States produces in a year.
Oh my God.
And so
isn't there another alternative?
not right now, maybe someday later. And it's the Chinese and Africa that really has a corner on the lithium marketplace.
Oh.
But this thing that the Sierra Club is telling us, that we can shut these plants down and put a whole bunch of solar panels up and wind terminals and lithium batteries. No, you cannot do that. And the sooner those environmental firms that we all love realize that, the better. So some of the scientists say at some point we're going to realize that we're really in trouble, and we're going to probably have to build as many nuclear power plants as we can, like maybe 10,000 in a year.
Ooh.
Because
Is that like right here in the United States?
oh yes, oh yes.
So they're talking about really getting back into nuclear.
Very definitely. There's.
I mean, what's the downs? I mean, I know if they have an explosion or if they have a leak, that is, but
they don't explode. You know, yeah, Chernobyl, that was a long time ago, and this 3 Mile Island. Today, they put these domes on them, and you know how thick these domes are. They tested taking 747s head first into them, and even a plane of that magnitude can't break them.
I mean, that was one of their R&Ds?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
And so they don't explode.
Why did they get rid of them? I mean, they were going here, and then why did they pull them off?
They weren't going, they pulled them off because that movie Silk with Jane Fonda and 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things happened, and people got frightened of radiation. Yeah. And it's just like there are some whites who are afraid of black people. It's irrational. And now
ignorance.
Yes. And we know that the stuff is really safe, and it's really of value. For example, California is a leader in a lot of things, and California likes to be seen as a leader in fighting climate change. Yeah. Okay, but a measure of who's really winning the battle is greenhouse gases per the population, per individual.
Right.
Well, California's greenhouse gases per person is there. France is there.
Yeah.
And France is there because right after World War II, when all their plants were decimated, they decided they had to have technology superior to others so that it could be a big, the French are very much into being a leader. And their people said, why don't we build nuclear energy plants? No, in those days you weren't concerned with emissions, but there's no emissions, no greenhouse gases going up, and
from the actual nuclear plant.
There's none.
There's none.
Absolutely none. And what really happens in those plants is they have the uranium, and they're only using it to boil water. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. And now they have schemes where if the thing starts to get too hot, the chemicals separate and the heat process weakens, and it makes it impossible for. So that's one of the.
They've progressed enough in their evolution on that.
Yes.
So that wouldn't happen.
Yes, and what is a true shame these days, the Greens in France have lobbied the government because they got this fear of nuclear, to reduce the amount of nuclear power plants and replace them with solar energy. And
so it's a kind of a battle that's going on internationally, nationally.
Yes, yes.
Oh. So, see, there is solutions. It's just...
There are. Yes.
And unfortunately, I believe that a lot of those, people that are involved in it are looking out after the money. are not looking out for the best interest of all humanity.
Yeah. Now, Exxon, a lawsuit has been filed against Exxon, and they're going to charge Exxon for the trillions of dollars of damage they have done to us and to the world. Because for 20 years now, the scientists at Exxon and other places have known that burning oil and gasoline is filling the atmosphere with this ring
Well,
that's
the
locking
ozone is.
And since they knew about it, like the opioid drugs, they knew that it would harm us, and it's harming us. And now there are governments, states that want Exxon to pay for the damage.
And how long will that take?
Well,
And who's going to get who's going to be the receptacle, to get? How are they going to do that?
I think that'll have to be worked out. Like, some of it might go to the federal government, some might go to state governments, some might go to foreign governments. I don't know how they're thinking about doing it, but they may, as part of a settlement, require Exxon to stop selling a lot of its products.
Yeah. And the rest of them.
Yes.
Well, I still have to keep focusing. We have to keep focusing on solutions.
Yes. And that's my main project these days. I am making television shows. I am publishing white papers, regular reports, all having to do with helping the public and the political leaders and corporate leaders discover which solutions to climate change will be best, and including which ones can they make the most amount of money.
Yeah.
And that they make money, they'll work harder to implement these solutions.
Wow. So what do you think the next step is, as far as the getting the nuclear power?
Well, I think the nuclear power industry has to invest a considerable amount of money to educate the public and the big decision makers, and to help us all compare the threat of climate change. And when you look at that threat, that's so powerful, it could wipe out all of New York City, all the power plants in the nation, flood many, many cities. When you look at the magnitude of the number of people that are going to be harmed, deaths, etc., and then when you look at the solutions like nuclear looks like a walk in the park compared to this. And that reminds me, the other day I was speaking with a scientist, 20,000 people were killed in Japan with the Fukushima. Remember? Okay, that's a horrible thing.
But there's still the repercussions of cancer that's happened.
Well, I think that may be overblown. But let me just deal with a couple of little facts. 20,000 people were killed. You know why they were killed? Because the tsunami did it, not the plant.
Yeah.
One person was killed from radiation in the plant. 20,000. And now this is another interesting statistic. Every day around the world, 20,000 kids die from lack of clean energy. They don't have the energy to give them clean water, good safe transportation, or whatever. So when you think about it, 20,000 kids die every day. And what is the Fukushima? It's not even a pimple. And what is,
The only thing that I question about Fukushima is, they keep saying there's so much of the bad trash and the, you know, all of that stuff that's in the ocean still from Fukushima. And, you know, they're saying that it's moving closer to us on this side. I mean, is that radiation? Is that just garbage? What is it?
I think it's more garbage than anything else. And, you know, the Japanese made a mistake. They built on land that says don't build here,
Oh, God.
because every decade or whatever, it's mostly garbage, and there is some radiation. But, you know, we live in a world of radiation. There is radiation
Unfortunately.
right in this room.
Oh, of course. Of
And
course. I mean, with all the computer
Yeah.
stuff, I
And-
know.
And in the ground, if you pick up some, but it's not harmful. There's,
I know we can tolerate so much,
Yes.
but I don't know what that level is, and I suppose it's different for every person because everybody is different, you know. But I did talk to a pharmacist about that, and he just happened to be Chinese, and he shared with me that they were doing a study in China in different levels of radiation. And they came to the conclusion that a little bit of radiation actually keeps you healthy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know.
it's part of us. It's
Um,
part of us.
You know. So, well, interesting. But I want to kind of focus. I mean, this is huge. These topics that we're talking about is absolutely. Well, it's for our survival if we don't get this worked out. And I keep thinking about, do you have grandchildren?
Do I have grandchildren?
How many?
I have two.
Two, okay. So, you know, I think about my daughter when she's ready to have a child or whatever, if she's going to do that. It's just so important to be conscious of getting our planet healthier than what it is today.
Yes.
For them and well for us too, but I do want to focus in on your paintings,
Yeah.
and I want you to share.
Sure. Now, this is a solution. This is a climate change solution that's here. And now it's not as big of a solution as, you know, bringing in nuclear energy plants.
Right.
But this is Stanford University, and a few years ago, they recognized that coming up over the left, you know, you see those two red arms? Those represent PG&E's delivery of energy to the university generated from gas. Gas is dirty. Gas is deadly. I mean, coal is deadly.
Yeah.
I mean, real deadly. Gas is not, but it's still gas. I heard the chairman of PG&E say one day, the day may come, it'll come though, when they're not going to be allowed to sell gas in the United States, California anyway. That's how bad gas is. So this over here is the old system, which is very much like a lot of companies' systems, and up goes the energy from burning gas or coal, and out comes, you see that white up above? That's full of mist and it's full of water. You know, the old systems that are out there in universities and clusters of buildings, and they're wasting a tremendous amount of water, and they're putting the greenhouse gases around the planet. So Stanford's thinkers, there they are, sat down and said, God, we can't, we got to be a leader, we got to be good, and we got to change this approach. And so they built this other energy system, which is really one based on heating up hot water and making cold water, and then sending the two types of water in two different pipes, and the heat gets released from the hot pipe into the buildings, and the cold releases cold or absorbs the heat from
What is the source of the power there?
Stanford has made deals with solar farms out in the desert, and they get some of it from there. They get some other from these clean, so-called clean power services, and that's pretty much it. They have to use a little bit of energy from outside the plant. And then they also have solar panels
Yeah.
on
Okay.
different
So
buildings.
it's a kind of a mix then.
A mix.
Yeah.
And this is called, the kind of solution they put in has a technical term. It's a district energy solution, a district. And what they mean by a district, it's a cluster of buildings, a group of buildings managed by a single enterprise. Okay, like this university, there's that vice president of energy. That person can affect decisions all about. So this is, it's hard for me to explain it here, but this is a district energy solution that other organizations around the world are looking at to see if they can implement the same kind of system, which will allow them to decrease the amount of water they're wasting, decrease the amount of dirty energy they are buying, decrease the amount of dirty energy they're using.
I just want to point out, you have a heart there.
Yeah.
And what is that representing?
That's the heart of the system. And can I get up with that? Maybe, no, I won't get up. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
You see we got the two pipes coming into the heart from this coming out of the building?
Yeah.
Well, in that heart, there's technology that pulls heat out of icy water.
Oh.
And when you pull the heat out of icy water, that water gets colder. But when they pull the heat out, they put that heat in a hot water pipe, and it makes that water hotter.
Yeah.
And so then those pipes continue around again, and the hot pipe with the hot water in it, when it goes to a building, it gives up some of the heat in that water. And when the ice water goes into a building, the pipe, it senses where there's heat, and it yanks that we don't want, and it yanks the heat into the hot water, and that process keeps repeating. And what Stanford has done for batteries, this is really cute. Oh, they have up there, that's AI, artificial intelligence, which is monitoring the weather patterns, the weather that's going to happen at Stanford. And if the weather says we're going to have very cold weather in the next few days, Stanford has 2 gigantic tanks, big, with water in. And if it's going to be very cold in the next few days, they make the tank that has the hot water a little hotter. If it's going to be hot days coming up, the AI system says, cool down the water. And these are tanks bigger than this studio. I mean, gigantic. That's their storage. It's their storage facility.
Interesting. Well, it's a wonderful representation, and I know that Stanford honors this because they have the original that is the mainstay on their campus. And
the deal is very interesting. Right now, it's in the Center of Energy and Sustainability for the campus, but they're going to move it shortly to another building for 6 or 7 months, and then another building, and another building, and
raise the awareness.
Everywhere it goes, it's a new news event.
Yes.
And it gives Stanford a chance to explain this solution to the press, to the analysts, in hopes that decision makers will hear more about it and start considering building their city. This is for a city also, a small city.
Right. Well, my goodness. Not only have you expanded your artistic ability, but the education behind this, the root of all this. I mean, it is fascinating.
Now, you control the time. I don't. But can I say something about this?
Well, that's all right. We have plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Well, let me just first say something for the artist and the people who think about this is an unusually difficult thing to make, okay? I mean, it caused me a lot of, but, you know, to show the benefits of the
Right.
new system, you
Right.
must show the benefit with the situation.
Yeah.
So before you can paint the old system, you got to understand it.
Right.
And
Oh,
that's-
totally.
That's
I get that,
technology
yeah.
A. The new system going to be B. They're very different. And so you got to learn both of them. And then before you can paint this one, you know, angles and colors and shapes matter. Over here, angles and shapes matter too. And you got to know over here what angles you want to use for your buildings and other things and the flow that you're going to use over here. It's a strange phenomena. You can't paint one without knowing what the others.
Yeah,
and then
I understand.
Okay, but so anyway, it was fun, exciting.
Do you have a you know, a brand name for this, or?
This is Stanford Smart Energy Campus.
Okay.
That's
okay.
it.
All right.
But
And
this one,
Yeah.
this one I painted, and maybe my best painting ever. I painted, this is about the 10th painting I ever worked on.
Now,
And
do you use oil or do you
no,
use
I'm acrylic.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't use anything else. I've had such a short career that I hadn't
okay.
had time
to explore the rest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
And I came up to this neighborhood. Wood Acres is the town nearby. And until recently, the great artist Harry Cohen, who just passed away, you know, he invited me up, and we spent a weekend painting together. And you know, he's got 60, 70 years of experience. And at the end of that weekend, I went home and I painted this. And
What great motivation and inspiration you had.
yeah, he somehow know that he affected my thinking and my feeling. The original is 5 feet by 6 feet, 5 feet up, 6 feet long. And I had sensed that unless we do something, all of us, we could be heading in a very bad place, like back to the cave people's times. I mean, it's very possible. We could destroy this place, and maybe for 1,000,000 years there wouldn't be any more of us, but then maybe life will return. So I said to myself, what could I paint to get that message across to help people think about that? And I said, why don't I lay down first on this painting images of our society, like E equals MC squared.
Right.
There's a building spewing out gases, and I took the approach of those would be all things cave people 1,000,000 years from now would find on our walls, what's left of them in our caves.
Okay. Yeah.
And what would they do? Like over there, there's a cross. The cross is about that big in the original. What would they do when they see, the cave people see a cross? They wouldn't be into Christianity. No, who knows what they'd be into. They would paint, in that particular situation, they'd paint one of their neighbors or themselves laying on the cross. And they'd paint monsters or the animals they're involved with on top of the art we found. That's the simple approach to this baby.
Yeah.
Lay down what exists today that we're all familiar with, and then lay down cave art on top of it. It makes an incredible
Message.
and imagery. It's,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I can see why Stanford would want this, you know, as their prototype, or, you know, their standard, their brand, whatever you want to label it. But you know, because image, we're all visual people mostly,
and
you know.
So, you know, for my studies, and I'm sure you know this, but I eventually came from the world of publishing studies, 400 of them. and some of them sold for 20,000 a piece, some 5,000. Some of them were just 90 pages, double spaced. I mean, these were for business executives who were going to invest millions and millions of dollars here or there, and the studies would help them. But these studies all appeal to people's logic. Okay, that's where my background is. But then I stumbled into art, and art appeals to the emotions.
Yep.
So I said, wait a second, that's power. It's one thing to appeal to the logic of people, and you can also appeal to the emotions.
Yeah.
And then I read what Aristotle told us many, many, many years ago, that there's only 3 ways to persuade. Appeal to people's logic, that was my studies. Appeal to their emotions became the art, and appeal to people's need to see that you or me are associated, that the deliverer of a message is associated with something that they respect.
Right.
Like they respect ideas, that's up there. They respect NASA, they respect Stanford. I respect you because I'm now going to be seen in public being associated with you. So those are the 3 ways.
Vice versa, versa. Yep.
Those are the 3 ways to persuade: appeal to people's need for logic, their need for their emotions, and the need to see that you and me, NASA, are associated with important things, and then people do what you want them to do.
Right, right. Well, and I do think that ultimately, that when you really get people's attention, when you can affect their emotions,
Yeah.
that I think is the key.
Yeah, and it's more powerful than logic, because
Yes.
you and I are going to go out and marry the wrong person because we married that person because maybe your mother and your father loved that person, or maybe they had
That's a whole nother subject.
a whole tremendous amount
Yeah.
of sex appeal, or maybe you knew their parents were going to leave them $1 billion, and
Yeah.
these are the
Right.
wrong reasons, and later on problems occur, and logic then says, well, we got to put an end to that one.
I've been there.
We all have.
Yes.
You've lived long enough.
But when you really listen, and it's kind of sad that in our society, that people don't, I mean, even all the media, everything, it doesn't focus on really, with your heart space, your mind, heart. I always say, when you have your mind and your heart in balance, that's the
Your mind and your heart. So
your
that
mind
would be
and your heart.
mind is the logic, I think,
Yeah,
and the heart
yeah.
is the emotion.
And I say, because I've written 2 books, and I say metaphysics. That's my favorite word.
Metaphysics.
Metaphysics, because you're putting the mind, the heart, the spirit together, and that, to me, then that's the ideal.
Yes.
But it doesn't always happen that way.
Yes.
It depends who you're dealing with and what the subject is. But
Yeah.
I so appreciate you coming on here and sharing your knowledge and having this conversation with you. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. And our time is coming to an end. But is there any wonderful gold nuggets that you want to share, wisdom that you want to share before we?
Well, I think when I was a little boy, I was a poor student, and in the summer, right after graduation from elementary school, I played a game of chess with the smartest kid in the class. He always beat everybody. I went out and bought a book by Reinfield and Horowitz called The Principles of Chess. I read that book. I went back and I beat him. Principles give you the opportunity to look at any situation and determine the best action to exercise. I encourage people to go and research what principles are. A principle, for example, is concentrate on what matters most, or use the element of the unexpected to magnify the force supply. Principles contain all the force of the matter. I've lived well
Amen.
with
Amen.
relying. I go to principles all the time before I execute any action. And I went here before I got you to invite me on your show, and my principal said it would be wise I associate myself with you.
Thank you, thank you. And I want to, you know, I'm just, again, I appreciate you being here and sharing, and I love this. And I also want to thank Marin TV and my wonderful crew, good old Carl and Ginger and Brad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time.
All right, Dr. Cheryl, thank you.